You may remember me from my television shows in the 1980s and 90s, and now I host two regularly live streamed virtual magic shows. One is a showcase for some of the greatest magicians in the world, and the other is a talk show featuring some of the most inspiring conjurers of our times. Welcome now to Magical People. And welcome everybody to this week's edition of Magical People Live. I'm excited to present to all of you our two guests. Yes, two guests in one. Broadway Al Shaw, I believe from Chicago, I could be wrong, and Carlina de la Cova from Points. She'll explain where she's currently living and where she's from as well. Let's put our hands together for Al Shaw and Carlina de la Cova. Yay!
Yeah.
Yay! Thank you so much for joining us this day, guys. How are you?
We're doing all right.
Doing good. Thank you for having us and inviting us on the show. It's an honor to be here amongst like-minded individuals. So
It's sure an honor to have you as well this day. And we often, I guess our viewers don't know this, we have a blast off camera, usually after our presentations on the Tuesday and Wednesday night shows. I would say look them up on Facebook, but there's going to be a whole new thing happening in January. But so we'll tease about that a little bit. But yes, as our friend Micah Cover teases at and jokes about the preamble before the shows actually start, and then after can be just as entertaining as the show itself. So let's let's dig right in. I'm gonna kind of go in no particular order with you guys. You're wearing the waistcoat, the lovely vest this day, Al. And and
Yeah,
Carlina,
I'm a Timu shopper,
aren't we all? And I love the bow tie, Carlina. And
yeah.
I'm assuming it's real that you tie them yourself. I think you shared that with us one day, on or off camera. And that's it's not an easy thing to do, but you get used to it. So I'm an admirer of people who wear bow ties because I just don't have the patience. I wear these big floppy things sometimes and whatnot because they're just easier to tie. So let's get into a little bit. And I'm going to ask the cliche question, the obligatory cliche question, Al. How did you get into magic? I'm going to do the Bill Shatner thing. How
Well,
did you
hopefully I do not have a cliche answer. Um, in 1949 or so, yes, I'm that old. They had a TV show in the East Coast called The Magic Clown. And I used to watch him as a kid. And then in the 50s, the Fresh Air Fund is what it was called. People donated to in New York, and they sent poor kids from the slums to camp. And then entertainers from the area would come out to the end of Long Island where the camp was and entertain the kids. And one of the guys who came out was the Magic Clown, the same guy. He did Hippity Hop Rabbits, and he did the Cub Scout without his head that comes back. And I never forgot that. And that was sort of, percolating in there, let's say. And that sort of stuck with me for a long time. And then my brother Mike got into magic in the early 60s. And I just was always on the periphery, seeing it happen. It happened pretty well. I mean, he was on TV when he was a little boy and stuff. And I never really started performing. And then I joined the Sherlock Holmes Club in the 70s. And one of the members was Jay Marshall. For those of you who've been involved for a while, a long while, know that Jay had a shop in Chicago called Magic Incorporated. But he also was a very famous performer. Anytime you read a history of somebody in magic, they have my story who say, and then Jay Marshall showed me, or so at one of the club meetings, he did a trick where he did a pencil through a dollar bill. And a couple weeks later, we were at a book sale together. All the guys used to go to the book sales together. And Jay was in line with me. And I said, "You remember that trick you did with the dollar bill? How close can you do it?" And he took a pencil out and a dollar bill, and he put the pencil right through the dollar bill. And he said, "Does that answer your question?" And then he gave me the pencil. And then the next month at the meeting, he gave me a set of those copper cups and balls that
Yes.
everybody's familiar with. And that's really how I started. I had the interest going for a long time, especially watching my brother perform here and there. But once Jay took the time to do that, that inspired me to buy books. And we all know books are like videos, only they don't go away. And and I learned the cups and balls, and I've sort of been doing it off and on ever since. That's pretty much, my story.
And you're sticking to it, which is so cool. You're really lucky that you had Jay Marshall to inspire you and help you along a little bit earlier. It seems like in the magic world, and depending on where people grow up in North America, whether it's larger centers, medium, or smaller centers, if they're fortunate enough to have somebody famous to mentor them or to inspire them, that's a real bonus because not all towns and cities throughout North America have that luxury. So I'm sure you realize how lucky you were. And
Yeah.
Carlina, I'm not ignoring you as well. How did you get your start or starts or interest in magic? And then we'll talk about a bit of a correlation, a bit of an overlap with, well, I'll let Carlina speak first. How did you get your start?
Well, I blame him in a good way. But I mean, as a kid growing up, I lived between Jacksonville, Florida, and New York City because my parents had, split custody. And so in Jacksonville, Florida, there wasn't like a lot of magic things happening. So the magic that I was exposed to as a kid was like David Copperfield and Lance Burton and Mandrake the magician through, cartoon Super Friends and things like that. And then later on, Penn and Teller got very famous when I was in high school. But no one I knew was doing magic per se. And it was something that I'd always been interested in learning about and wanting to do. And really, it wasn't until last year, literally, we were going through some stuff in Al's garage, and Mike had wanted some of his magic stuff back, and so we were getting it boxed up. And then I learned that not only was Al a magician, I had known before that he had also been a clown that did magic, could juggle, could make like balloons and all that sort of stuff. Like I'm talking a big time clown out on the West Coast. I had no idea. And over here in Chicago.
Not exactly a small time clown now.
So,
I was just gonna, yeah, yeah, go on.
and so I'm seeing all this magic stuff laid out before me, all these different props and sorts of things. And when Mike came to visit, we talked about magic, and that's essentially how I got into magic. So I blame Al and Mike by default. Sorry, Mike. So
Yeah, I was
It's
I was I was I was turning over a bunch of the props to Mike to, for the things he does, and I had no idea she had an interest, right? So instantly, um, a
I
partner
love
was
it.
born, right?
I love it. I love it. It can be so addictive, though, and I know that all of us here in the studio and watching on Facebook, if you've had any amount of experience in magic, you become a magic collector, quote unquote. And it's so addictive. It's so addictive. I have to curb daily. I get all these emails a day, maybe a dozen or more from magic shops. And I'm so tempted. My first instinct is yes, 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 yes. And you know what? Oh, enjoy it while you can. Just collect and enjoy if you can, and then you'll eventually probably weed stuff out. At this point in my magic career, yes, I called it a career. At this point in my magic career, it's like, well, I have hundreds, not thousands anymore, but hundreds of tricks and illusions. but I know that they're only applicable to my style, my particular style, and the kinds of shows that I do, which now is largely mentalism and some bizarre magic as well. But it's so addictive, but it's kind of a healthy addiction. Would you agree?
Well, I would say this. First of all, I don't believe you. I am go I am go one day I am going to make one of those documentaries that pretty much will only appeal to magicians. And it is going to be visiting the magicians around the world, paid expenses. And I want to go over all the illusions that you are hiding in your drawer that you bought and never used. And everyone has that drawer, right?
It's there. It's there.
Right?
There's no denying it. And
Right? We
don't
all
we
have that
though?
drawer.
And don't we though, occasionally, maybe in the middle of the night, I'm not sure, we sneak down and we open the drawer, or in some of our cases, bookcases, in other cases, boxes, and we start to go through and think, maybe there's something I will use, maybe there's something that will make my career. And so you rummage through and you find it, and maybe you even start to play with it a little bit, and then it's like, oh, with great sadness in your heart, you wrap it all up again in the plastic or whatever, and you put it back very quietly and close your drawer or whatever. And it's like, I was probably right. And then you go
That,
back to sleep or whatever. Don't you
that's
think
sort of
that?
how we built up how we built our act that you and I know about. Um, I went through all the old stuff and um, I took the things that you don't see anymore or the things that I liked. Um, and that's what I used. I didn't go out and buy new stuff, latest stuff. I certainly don't do card tricks because my brother Mike is the card guy, right? So rather than try and live up to that, we built our own little niche. And by having the vintage stuff, we discovered that to everybody else, it's new,
Yeah,
right?
I'm
Yes,
a big fan. I'm a
yes.
big fan of vintage magic, and that's like, I guess the one thing that you would say I do collect, like, 40s and 50s hippity hot rabbits and
Oh, love it. Yeah.
dissectors, I'm sorry, things like that. So I'm a big fan of vintage magic and,
And
playing with that.
And actually, if memory serves me right, very recently, within the last couple of years, Tenyo, Tenyo magic, which early in maybe our careers or lives, we've kind of put back in the drawer or
Yeah.
whatever, because it's like, well, we're not going to show plastic magic. Let's forget about that. But it's been revisited and remarketed and actually
Right.
being sold again. And I can't speak for a younger generation, but for us, it's like these are treasures. Holy cow,
Right.
not only are they collectibles, but the effects aren't so bad. We're actually justifying in our minds buying more Tenyo probably, but they're really cool. Who doesn't love the zigzag sig? I'm sure you
That's
know what I'm
right.
Right.
talking about. It's a genius piece of engineering. And I saw somewhere online someone is building or has built a jumbo version so they can put a wand in or something or a
Excellent.
dowel. Wow, how cool is
Yeah.
that? I want to share with everybody right now um, something that you gave me, and it's not the flu. Don't worry. It's Broadway Al and Carlina doing a cool act. So let's check that out.
Conan Doyle and Houdini actually met one time.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, and it was a famous meeting for those who know about it. Um, Conan Doyle believed Houdini actually dematerialized when he did his vanishes or he walked through a wall, and he believed he actually did real magic. Houdini told Conan Doyle that all his tricks were an illusion, and they actually had a falling out over that because Conan Doyle continued to believe. So I say, just for tonight, let's believe in magic. Now what you think it is, Paul? Don't buy a team. It's really And the dessert appears. So, what's in the needle? That's a no needle.
You see, but you do not observe.
That's a needle. I've only done this once. Don't worry about it.
Oh, wow.
Huh?
I can introduce Carlina.
Yes. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. I hope you enjoyed your dinner. Tonight, I have a coloring book. And as a kid, you know, when we were all kids, we loved to color, right? But unfortunately, my coloring book has no pictures. So I'm going to use a little magic from my mind to this book to draw some pictures in. So a little bit of the old. So let's see if I was successful. I have created. But you'll notice that these pictures are not colored. So I am going to ask y'all for some help. I am going to ask y'all to assist me in coloring this book. Got the crayons right here. I'm going to throw them out to y'all using a little bit of the higgledy-piggledy magic, as we call it downtown. Going to blow it out. So y'all grab those colors, grab those crayons, and think about helping me color these pictures. Are y'all ready?
Yeah.
All right. Throw them at me. Let's go. All right. Thank you. Let's see if we were successful. Let's see. Wow. Thank you. Thank you.
That's Carlina. See, I'm going to teach you how to tie a square knot.
Okay, like in pictures.
Yeah, so right over left, left over right. That's a square knot.
That's not a square knot. This is a square knot.
Okay, we're going to do a rope trick.
You want to take the square knot?
No, stick it right in there. Put all the other squares. So, you know those Indian fakers? How about that, huh? Yeah, sure.
They make those for that.
Yeah, I do. Okay, let's do a rope trick. So we have a small piece of rope. We have a large piece of rope and a medium piece of rope. Now, the thing about this trick is you want to try and keep the ends all even. There you go. Bring up this guy right here. Bring up this guy right here. And we'll separate them into two different piles. And if you stretch, it sort of looks like the ropes are stretching. And then you have three pieces of rope the same size. Because we have 1, 2, 3 pieces of rope. You know what that means? Max is up.
I have no idea what I'm doing. So I have a wand and I have a flower pot.
Yay. That's just a brief clip of some of the stuff in your act. And I love when you guys switch back and forth like that, because it lends visual variety to your act and just overall color. I haven't I haven't seen the coloring book done quite that way in a long time, Carlina. I mean that in a very, very good way. And I had for years all those different things, the crayons that vanish and all those things. But the way you did it kind of makes sense in a very illogical craft of magic, right? I used to just have kids and adults throw the color from their clothing and skip the whole crayons or whatever bit. And your routine kind of makes sense. It's like, where did they get the colors from? Ah, yes, they got them from the crayons, duh. And you shared those colors with them, which they in turn returned to your book. And I thought, oh, that's so clever and logical. And I want to talk very briefly what you do beside magic, Carlina, because you have a whole other well, besides your hobbies and interests, which fascinate me, career, you're sort of a CSI, aren't you? You're a real life CSI and more.
Right. So I'm a full professor of anthropology with a specialty in biological anthropology. So what that means, what I do essentially is I study health and disease in the human skeleton, and I also identify deceased individuals both in the forensic context. So if you find a skeleton in your backyard, I'm the person that law enforcement would contact to identify that individual, give you a biological profile which consists of their age, their biological sex, their height, anything that can tell us about their identity or how they died. But I also do that in the archaeological and historic context as well. So I'm very multifaceted in that respect. And so I'm very blessed to have had a very, not really long, you wouldn't even say long by your standards. I got my PhD from Indiana University in 2008. And I've just been very blessed to have a successful career and being a successful bioarchaeologist in the discipline. So,
And I have to
And
say, she's very passionate about it, and you and I know that leads to success, right?
absolutely. It's passion, coupled with a few other things, that fuels a career or fuels what we may judgmentally call success. I know that if we weren't excited, for example, about magic, it would probably not amount to anything. It's
That's right.
so with various other hobbies and careers, music. I can, and I won't name someone who is so passionate about music and played guitar since he was about 18. But I never really amounted to much career-wise. First of all, I'm not that good, but I did have quite a few breaks at the beginning of my so-called music career, but maintained a passion about the kind of music, which is folk rock. Folk rock, what's that? Folk rock music and Cat Stevens and related performers. But in my case, my passion wasn't enough to fuel it. I had enough on my plate as a professional graphic designer and magician and all the stuff that went with that. But certainly, yes, passion is so important and will
yeah.
fuel careers and hobbies and almost into obsessions. And I don't know about you, but I love that. I love being obsessed about stuff. And as long as we don't hurt anybody or ourselves, there's nothing wrong with being
Or they don't
obsessed
catch
with.
us.
Just kidding, just kidding. Just
Let me
kidding.
write that down. Don't speak into the lapel there, Al. Um, I want to briefly talk as well about our other passions. I have a penchant for Sherlock Holmes. I have a penchant for movie monsters, particularly the Universal ones, vampires and all that sort of thing, not the blood and guts sort of stuff, which unfortunately or fortunately is very popular. But we're big into, and we can talk for hours about this, but
That's
oh,
right.
look at that, time has caught us up. We can talk for hours about this. Trivia. We're all big on trivia and little known stuff and some stuff that people would go, yeah, so what? But it's like it fuels our passion and excitement to know certain things about TV shows and movies and behind the scenes stuff. I've always been fascinated by that. But let's share briefly, and either of you, because I know you'll both know the answer to this, where is the overlap, for example, between Sherlock Holmes, those mysteries, by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, and magic generally as a career?
Ooh, ooh. Stump the guest. Is that what we're doing? Are we playing Stump the
Yeah,
Guest?
Carlina,
I would
squeeze
say,
in here.
I would say, I would say, one of Conan Doyle's books was called Magic and Mystery, right? Um, and to the people who are observing our craft or our art, um, our art is mystery. That's what we do. That's what we present, right? Um, and I think those of us that do it in a way that we enjoy are also enjoying mystery regardless. Um, when you read Sherlock Holmes, you need to try and read them with the mindset of that person in the 19th century, because the things he did in the stories to them were magic. And that's, I
Yes,
think, the overlap.
Sherlock Holmes once said,
absolutely.
and he once said, a conjurer gets no credit for showing his skill, like showing his how he did what he did, right? And so
Yes.
I think it's very true. I think what I also find fascinating as someone new to magic, I've only been doing this for about a year, is that it opens up such a venue for you to incorporate your loves and your passion and your interests. So we can incorporate Sherlock Holmes and aspects of the stories and the canon into our acts. We can incorporate, for
Exactly.
me, as many of you know out there in the audience, I love Legos, I love action figures, I love those sorts of things, and I can incorporate that aspect of my interest into my magic in some way or another. And take something that's a traditional magic trick, if you will, and make it my own, add my own signature to it, my own uniqueness to it. So, like Holmes very much did with the way that he interpreted lines of evidence and data at a crime scene, creating a narrative simply by using the scientific method and looking at evidence and ruling out things that were there versus what was there to draw hypotheses based from the data that he saw and then testing those in his head. So
Exactly, exactly. Perfect. I am going to bring in a little bit into the fray where magic or performance magic overlaps with other things. A lot of people may or may not know that Sir Arthur Conan Doyle was, well, he wasn't a spiritualist, his wife was, but I think it kind of rubbed off on him. And Houdini figured in all of this as well. Would one of you like to share that story with us?
Sure. Um, yeah, it doesn't always speak well of Conan Doyle, but we need to remember it was the 1800s. That little song
Yes.
needs to play in our head, right? The 1800s. Um, there were no exposure videos then. If you wanted to expose, you had to go in the street and open your coat. So,
I'll show a joke.
I'll show a joke. So, not included in the act.
Always included in the act. You just don't know it's coming.
So the quintessential story is Houdini's mom passed away, and Houdini was a big mama's boy. And his exploration of spiritualism started with wanting to contact his mother if he could actually on the other side. And in his exploration, Houdini became very disenchanted with the people who were fraudulently taking advantage of people, whether it was cracking their toes or smoke and mirrors, as they say. That's he objected to that because his search for himself was authentic, and eventually he became disheartened and then went about exposing mediums. Parallel to that, Conan Doyle's interest got very deep when he lost his son, and when the woman he was involved with was very involved in spiritualism and doing things medium, not well. So what happened was Conan Doyle and Houdini were friends. Conan Doyle always believed to the end, actually, regardless of their relationship, that Houdini was hiding secrets of his abilities that he truly dematerialized on one side of a wall and rematerialized on another side of a wall when he passed through it. So that's the mindset of the man, but his intentions were to help Houdini contact his mother. So he
Absolutely.
arranged a seance with Lady Doyle at the time. And during the seance, she purported to contact Houdini's mom. And when she was in her trance, the things she said were things like, oh, Houdini, my son, don't worry, I'm over here, everything's fine. A lot of the mediums at the time were feeding back when you went to, and Houdini being Houdini, who was not exactly a sensitive guy, as we know from many stories, right? Didn't say, thank you very much, goodbye, I appreciate the effort, but instead let Conan Doyle know in front of his wife that it's not possible, didn't happen. My mother never called me Houdini. She called me Eric. She called me other nicknames, but she never would refer to me as Houdini, and she couldn't speak English.
Yes.
That led to a schism, and they never spoke again. Mostly because Conan Doyle couldn't accept being rebuffed like that, and he's the one who actually wound up severing the relationship. And Houdini being Houdini, probably to his dying day, was like, "What the hell did I do wrong?" Right?
Exactly.
That's
Exactly.
the
But
story. That's the quintessential story.
yes, I suspect that Houdini's mother might have called him Bubala, but that's just me. In any case, I want to share as well, which I know you guys know, and many out there who are magicians know, that Houdini gave his wife Bess a secret word. And after his passing, it was sort of arranged really to debunk fraudulent mediums. If a medium could mention that word while she was channeling or doing her mediumship work, then maybe that was the proof that they were real. But I think we all know no one ever got that word.
Yeah, the phrase was supposed to be Rosabelle Believe, because his private
Yes.
nickname for her was Rosabelle, right?
Yes.
Um, and no legitimate medium ever was able to do that.
Yes, not even the illegitimate ones as well. So
No,
um, I have to thank you. I know that, wow, I wish we had hours to do this. So I'm
this
going
would be
to
great.
beg and ask you if you'll come back in the new year sometimes in 2025, because apparently we're just going to continue with our show. It was supposed to end in January sometime, but that doesn't look like it's going to happen. So will you join us sometime in
Oh, we
the
would love it.
Definitely, we would
We
love
would
to.
love it.
awesome. We can get
Sure.
more into other stuff and stories, etc. But in the meantime, how can folks contact you if they want to book you for a show? Anybody?
Well, I would like 2 candles and get a crystal ball.
Make sure there's some
Then,
fairies.
And the schmata as well,
right.
with big earrings. No,
The best way right now is we have a Facebook page. I think it's the Magic of Broadway Allen Carlina. Yeah, when you search, that's the best way, because you could leave us a message there, as well as text us, and then our individual emails will get notified as well.
excellent, excellent. And Carlina, do you have anything to add as far as that's concerned?
No, I mean, I'm easily Googleable. So,
It's easy
but
for you to
I
say.
did want to point out, with Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, we also have to remember, and this was a conversation we were having a couple of nights ago.
Oh, yeah.
Was it cultural? And well, he believed in fairies too, right? And
Yes,
so he believed in a lot of things, and I,
yes,
we still try and understand the scientific. He creates this amazing scientific character in Sherlock Holmes who believes in none of the things that he believes in, Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, but at the same
yes.
time he believes in these things. So it's a bit
And
of
it may
a
be cultural. It may be cultural. You're absolutely right. In certain parts of the world, they believe in fairies and other things as well, other manifestations. So it could have been cultural. And I think just to be fair, that should be mentioned as well. I want to thank you so much, Broadway Al Shaw and Carlina de la Cova, for joining us this day. Thanks
thank
again.
you for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great time. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, guys. And most of all, I want to thank all of you out there for joining us. We're here every Saturday, 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. I still have to think. I've said the same thing 15 years. For 15 years, I've been saying this. 1 Western, 4 Eastern in North America, and of course, 9 p.m. in the UK. And look us up on Facebook as well. There's a Facebook page called Magical People Live. It was changed from Magical People to Magical People Live. And you can get tickets. Tickets are always free, as people in our Facebook audience, as well as our in studio audience knows. Take care, and we'll see you all really soon. Be well.